welcome to today's session on side event with on the science, technology, innovation for the sustainable development goals. Today's session is called UN Global Horizon Scanning: Insights from Digital Tools to Analyze Signals, Trends, and Drivers of Change Across the UN System. It's going to be an exciting few minutes together today. As you can see, we've got a great group of panelists and people who are going to be sharing their insights with the team, with the broader group here. And to begin with, I would like to first of all invite Ayaka Suzuki, who's the director of the Strategic Planning and Monitoring Unit in the Executive Office of the Secretary General, to kick us off with some opening remarks. We've been really lucky to work with Ayaka over the course of the development of the UN Futures Lab, and it's a pleasure to have you here today, Ayaka. The floor is yours. Over to you, Ayaka.
Great. Happy to be here. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, colleagues. Thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you so much for your perseverance. We were disappointed that we couldn't have this session last week, but I'm very happy that we're all here now. So as we saw last Wednesday or Tuesday, whenever it was, these are turbulent times that we don't know what could happen. So it's really important, and I think we all understand the value of horizon scanning, because we need to be able to anticipate change, identify emerging risks, and also opportunities, and strengthen our anticipatory action. For those of you who've been around the UN for some time, I'm sure you've heard us saying time and time again that we need to be less reactive and more anticipatory. So now is really the time to walk the talk. So we need to make sure that in so doing, we need to make sure that we are working together in a more collaborative way, because there are the pockets of expertise and capacities of foresight across the UN system, across different agencies, but there are very few opportunities that exist to connect the dots across mandates and signals. So this is a really exciting tool. I've been discussing about this with the colleagues in the Futures Lab for quite some time, to use as a means of fostering collaboration and surfacing interlinkages across different SDG themes and making insights more actionable. So I think that once you are introduced to this tool, you will find it to be very, very useful, and incorporate that into your daily work. And I think it's also very notable, and this is all also in the context of UN 2.0, right, where we talk about the need to leverage data, digital, strategic foresight, behavioral science, and innovation writ large. The innovative use of digital analytics and natural language processing are very, very, very aligned with the March 2025 UN AI guidance. So we are very much supportive of these kinds of initiatives and the use of responsible AI. Some of you may have been around when we had this very exciting hands-on AI workshop in a lobby. And by the way, the biggest compliment that I think I received was that the workshops were so popular that it was almost as though there was free food in the lobby, right? We really want to encourage the responsible use of AI to improve policy design, system-wide learning, and future preparedness. And I think this is such a great example of that. So please use this opportunity to reflect not only on the tool's technical features, which are very impressive, and congrats to colleagues in DESA who made this happen, but on the systemic implications of consolidating foresight knowledge, particularly for inclusion, participation, and more responsive multilateralism that we hope this will foster. So with that, I'll give the floor back to Chris.
Thank you so much, Ayaka, and we'd be remiss if we didn't also recognize that certainly one of the sources of this project was came from your brain. So we have to acknowledge that, and thank you for the thoughts and thinking and guidance on this. Right. So today we're going to first of all we're going to give you a bit of an introduction to this scanning initiative that we've partnered with DESA on. We're going to give you a bit of an idea of what the tool produces in terms of insights. Why is this useful? How could this be useful for colleagues across the UN? We're going to give you a demonstration. Gregory's going to take us through that. Gregory's been certainly the technical mastermind behind the project. And then we're going to open up to our panel, which consists of people who have been carrying out horizon scanning work across the UN, and they're going to be sharing with us their insights and not only what worked but also what they perhaps struggled with in carrying out horizon scanning. Then we're going to open up to this interactive dialogue. We're going to be using Mentimeter to gather questions, to gather ideas and insights from you, the participants, and then we'll close. One thing that I wanted to say before we get into the introduction is whenever we have such events, such interactive dialogues with folks across the UN and beyond, we use these insights in terms of how we program, how we move our direction as the Futures Lab into the future. We take the insights, we really take them seriously. And so please do feel free to be active participants, and rest assured we'll be taking your insights, because this is another opportunity for us to learn from this diversity of thinking and perspective. Now, what are we talking about when we say a joint horizon scanning project? Well, Adriana from DESA is going to be giving us a bit of an overview as to where the project is heading. Alana's going to be talking to us about some of the insights that we've already been able to glean from the tool, and Gregory's going to be taking us through the tool itself and giving us a live demonstration. Now, when it comes to the tool itself, as Ayaka said, our ability to join together the different insights across the UN when it pertains to strategic foresight is something that needs some work. And so we've been looking at lots of different ways to consolidate, to learn from all of the different foresight initiatives, and essentially try and gather signals into one place that we can all, as UN staff and personnel, access and turn these insights into action. And so what we thought about with DESA were a couple of different things. First of all, the challenge that we wanted to solve was, how can we make use of the multitude of insights and foresight work that's happening across the UN. Secondly, we wanted to look at easier, lighter ways for us to access insights, signals, drivers of change, and so on and so forth, in ways that would perhaps be a little bit faster than contacting our foresight folks across the UN individually. So we really wanted to be able to consolidate signals, drivers of change and trends, excuse me, and we wanted a way for us to be able to analyze these signals and really make the best use of all of our work. The second thing that we were very cognizant of is that we needed to have some kind of taxonomy of the different inputs, so that they would make sense for our staff and personnel across the system. We wanted to be able to categorize so that we could carry out more in-depth analysis and insert our own processes from whichever UN entity we're working for. And really, it's important for us to underscore that the tool is intended to provide preliminary analysis, and what comes after that would surely be some quality assurance by some of the users, questioning some of the signals, some of the outliers perhaps, and of course your own strategic foresight processes. So that's really what we wanted to do with the project. Now, in terms of where we are, I'm going to ask Adriana if you could talk through the process that we followed thus far and where we're headed to next. So Adriana, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Chris, and good morning, good afternoon to all of those who are joining us today. So I just wanted to give a bit of a background. The collaboration with DESA and the UN Futures Lab Global Hub started in 2024 when we embarked on a journey of co-designing together Foresight webinar series, which is part of an initiative on foresight of the UN Economist Network. As part of that webinar series, we developed a series of tools that helped to analyze the signals of change, trends, and also major forces of change or interlinkages. And one of the tools that was developed was precisely in a much smaller scale than this project, but an AI tool that was informed and trained on the responses to an online survey on drivers of change that we administered to, I think, over 20 UN agencies and entities. So based on that tool and collaboration, the idea then emerged of developing or scaling up that type of tool, but then in a broader sense to look, as Chris said, to the material across the UN system. At this point, it's in the pilot phase. So today's webinar is very important because we also are very much looking forward to your feedback, insights, so that we can improve the tool. And so I would say that what emerged from this is that we have developed a UN Economist Network policy brief on governance futures, which use the insights from the online survey, and I'll talk a bit more about that later. So this is the minimal viable product, which is testing 5 source documents. Of course, the DESA Governance Future Survey. Then there is the UNEP Navigating New Horizons, the UNDP Signal Spotlight 2023, FAO, The Future of Food and Agriculture, and WHO Emerging Trends and Technologies. And at this moment, the UN DESA's Division for Public Institutions and Digital Government, together with the UN Futures Lab, we've been testing the user friendliness of the tool. We've also done some further technical development based on the feedback, but of course we want to broaden this to a greater audience to make sure that the tool is fit for purpose. And we intend then to roll it out and scale it up later this year. So I would say that these are the key strategic points and pathways for the development of this tool, which my colleague Gregory has pioneered, of course, together with the insights and collaboration of the UN Futures Lab. So let me also take this opportunity to thank again Chris, Alana, and Irina for a wonderful collaboration. We're very much looking forward to scaling it up and to making it, a useful tool to all colleagues across the UN. Thank you very much, Chris. Back to you.
Thanks, Adriana. And we're going to be hearing more from Adriana in a little while. But first of all, let's move to Alana, who's the deputy of the UN Futures Lab of the Global Hub. Alana, can you give us a bit of an idea of what some of the emerging insights are from the tool, and perhaps some of the lessons that you've learned from this process? Alana, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Chris. And indeed, Adriana, it has been a fantastic collaboration, and we are so pleased and really excited to have got to this point. As many of colleagues who I can see connected are also part of our UN Strategic Foresight community of practice, and there have been so many discussions around the need for this type of tool. We come together across our mandates, across our different entities based in different parts of the world, and we're doing so much, as Ayaka said, there is so much depth of information, horizon scanning, signals, trends, and drivers of change being collected across the system. But there is really this lack of gathering this together and bringing it in a sort of a consistent way, repackaging it so that we can then also be very useful to our decision makers. So very, very excited. As Adriana mentioned, we are at the very first stage of this. So this is the pilot stage, and we wanted to start simple. So we kind of, what we're showing today is just the insights. Sorry, I'm hearing some background noise. Yeah, sorry. So what we started to do is just start with 3 very simple prompts. The idea, and as Gregory will talk us through, it's a machine, AI, that needs to learn and build. And so we thought these 3 prompts that you see on the screen was at least something that we could start with. So those 5 reports that Adriana just mentioned, the DESA, the collection, the survey for the governance futures, we have UNDP's report, UNEP's report, FAO's report, and WHO's report. Very different horizon scanning processes that took place between 2022 and 2024. But we asked the tool, what are the top signals mentioned across these publications? What are the interconnections between them? And what are the points of convergence and divergence? So what we saw was, next slide, please, something very exciting. So here, and Gregory will give us a live demo, and the text is very small, but just to give you an idea what it can do. Here, visually, on the left-hand side, we have some text that gives us some explanation in response to the questions I have just asked. So the tool scans the different reports and gives us text here. It also gives us a visual in the middle, and then it gives us more details on the right-hand side, which is super, super, super useful. I have spent so many hours pouring through different horizon scanning reports to see what's similar, what's different, what might be contextually relevant somewhere, but really not make any sense in a different location. And, gathering all of this, pages and pages of Word documents, and this is just so beautiful, I have to say. So in terms of utility, very, very excited. Next slide, please. And so what we see here, again, we're not going to go into great detail because this is just to give an example. We've asked it these 3 questions, and the tool has told us there are the top signals across all of the reports. Here on the left, the 3 top signals were increasing polarization and fragmentation of political discourse. Secondly, technology, digitalization, AI, and cyber politics. And third, climate change. So that was across all those 5 reports. Those were the top 3 signals that were mentioned the most amount of times. Then here on the next column, it gives us more detail in terms of what type of interconnections are there. Next, what are the convergences? Because of course, they are all very much dependent upon the mandate in which one is undertaking the horizon scanning, the context, et cetera, And then finally, the divergences. Again, really, really interesting insights that can come out within seconds, as Gregory will show us in a minute, but otherwise would have taken me a very, very, very long time. And it's just really a fantastic tool that we hope we can just explore with you all and improve. Next slide, please. So, for example, what we wanted to do, given the framing of this year's STI Forum, which was around SDGs 3, 5, 8, 14, and 17, okay, so one of the top signals, the second signal was technology. So we thought, let's have a look, for example, and take that signal, technology, and how is it represented across these different SDGs. And here, again, within a matter of seconds, it gave us a lot of really, really rich insights in terms of how technology has an impact on these different SDGs, And so, for example, we could very nicely package and frame any sort of discussion that we were doing around these SDGs, linking it to technology, and then taking a step back and looking again at the reports, that visual, which tells us exactly which report said technology in relation to those SDGs at what moment and what were the specific interconnections of that. So there are so many, once one starts to go down this, there are so many different layers. And it's just very, very, very exciting. But that was what we wanted to share, just in terms of initial, sort of our initial probes, those initial 3 probes. We have 5 reports, 3 probes, and this is just literally touching the surface of the types of information that we can get. And then hopefully we repackage it. We work on this first of all in more detail, we repackage it, and then it can be something that is very useful for our decision makers, our policy makers, and insights can be shared across the system so that we can really all benefit from the collective wealth of data that we have. So with that, Gregory, I'm going to pass to you because I think now is the very exciting moment when we are going to actually see the demonstration of the tool itself. So Gregory, over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Alana. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. I hope you can all see my screen. So this is the AI tool. The tool is essentially a AI chat, but our intention, at least at a technical level, was to be radically more transparent than any other chat interface available. What you're seeing here is essentially the brain of the tool, with these nodes, the blue ones being the knowledge bases, which Alana explained are the publications, or also in this case, the survey we conducted. So all of these insights together. And then the other nodes are the themes that are in common or not in common. The most commonly shared themes are in green. So you see here, climate change, clearly very central. And red are only in one of the publications. So you can see that there is a clear structure to the network. And this immediately gives us a kind of insight into where the strategic foresight publications, where the knowledge base is and exactly what the structure of it is. Okay, yeah, so let me also say why we wanted to do this. They've already explained that we wanted to reconcile these different publications. So when we see it demonstrated, we'll also see that it disaggregates for each publication. I think Alana already showed that a little bit, but okay, let's ask it a question. What are the top signals mentioned in the documents? And it's provided a explanation of what were the documents. And this is all very similar to what you can do in like ChatGPT or similar. It just prints a block of text, right? So, but the difference here is that we are able to visualize and explore the actual thinking process by visualizing the brain and exploring it. So for example, here, we click on development. You can see visualized where development is in the network. So you can see that it's related, it's drawing on, for example, the survey, which Adriana has explained. It's also drawing on the UNDP Signals Spotlight 2023. And then on the right-hand side, it explains in the context of this conversation and the documents, where development is mentioned and how the term can be broken down and where there are conflicts, where there's overlapping, where there's conflicts, etc. And so the value of this is that you're not just providing a block of text, you're actually able to visualize the kind of neural pathway and then provide feedback to it. So we can actually say, was this response helpful? You can say yes or no, up or down. And when we scale this, we'll actually be able to fine tune the underlying model to improve these neural pathways. And this is not found anywhere. This is a completely novel concept. This is not found in any commercial lab. They do not visualize the retrieval mechanism. They do not visualize the neural pathways, and they don't provide the feedback loop, which we have pioneered in this software. So yeah, and you can just go deeper and deeper on this. I'm sure I've probably used up all my time already, but yeah, if you wanted to go to health, you could look at how health is represented. Yeah, and you just continue to go deeper and deeper, provide more and more feedback, pursuing these neural pathways. And I believe that this modality will actually become the standard in a few years from now. The kind of block of text and then function calling, which is what all of the commercial labs use now, will be replaced by this in the future, because people do expect a level of transparency. They want to be able to interface with their own documents more clearly. At the moment, you just put it in and then it outputs, doesn't exactly explain how it got it, and it doesn't transparently reconcile them. So we're very proud of what we produce because it genuinely is entirely novel, and it's. I think there's a great deal of value we can get out of this, and a great deal of contribution we can actually make to cutting edge AI. Thank you.
Gregory, thank you so much for taking us through the tool. And Alana, thanks for just giving us a bit of an overview as to what we can glean from the tool itself. It's an really exciting project, and as Gregory has highlighted, it is novel, and it's really important that we can understand these connections and that we can understand the systems that underlie. That underpin the insights and the outputs. So, Gregory, thank you so much for talking us through the tool. Alana, thanks for sharing what can come out of it. Now, of course, the tool itself draws from a variety of excellent reports and processes, foresight processes that have led to very rich insights. And so that's what we're going to move to next. So I'm going to bring in our panel. So Adriana, who you've already heard from DESA, Naraway, who's the head of strategy and futures team at UNDP, Jason, who is a senior program management officer at UNEP, and of course Lorenzo, who's a senior economist, lead policy intelligence at the policy intelligence branch of FAO. And so what I wanted to ask each of you, starting with yourself, Adriana, maybe could you share a little bit about the process that went into putting together your report, the Global Governance Report from DESA, and how its insights are being applied? Any emerging outcomes resulting from its publication would be most welcome. If you could share that with us, Adriana, and you have the floor. So over to you.
Thank you very much, Chris. So indeed, what we did was, as part of the Foresight webinar series that I mentioned previously, we developed an online survey on exploring governance futures so the survey was based on research that we had already conducted because we had identified Sorry.
Good morning.
Can you hear me?
Adriana, we can hear you. Just a reminder to participants, if you wouldn't mind just making sure that you're muted, that would be much appreciated. Back to you, Adriana.
Yes, thank you very much. So we had conducted the research, preliminary research on the drivers of change across the pestle domains, so including, of course, the political, economic, technological, social, environmental, and regulatory. And then we developed the online survey. And the survey was submitted. So the survey was actually then used during the webinar series, and the insights were also used as part of the final development of the policy brief, the UN policy brief on governance futures. And we were very, I think, grateful for the participation of colleagues from across the UN, which I think enriched very much the findings, insights on, that were provided for this survey. We had over, I would say, 20 UN agencies and entities. So I think the importance of the survey was that it did not just focus on those who are working on governance per se, but really bringing the various trends from across the UN system. And how the survey was used is that we had the various questions, but we asked to select up to 3 key drivers of change per domain that we thought would have a significant impact on governance futures. And we also asked qualitative questions as to what types of governance systems could address global challenges, such as climate change, cybersecurity, new pandemics, among others. We also had questions about the values and the elements that people would believe should inform governance futures. And we used the survey results. As I mentioned before, we developed a dashboard to kind of visualize the early insights from the analysis. We had a network visualization to look at the interconnections, what were the outliers and what were the stronger signals of change. And the AI chat that was used to kind of validate and generate insights and look at what were the main interconnections among all the drivers of change. And it's very interesting because the major forces of change that came about by using the AI chat resonate very much with the findings of all the other reports that have been included in this prototype. So one was the shifting geopolitical dynamics and how these would have an impact on governance futures. The second one was the technological advancements and how there are risks and opportunities, especially with AI, and how that can have an impact on governance in the future. The shifts in social behavior, so how that is affecting the way that people interact with governments and among themselves. And then the fourth one was about the rise of non-state actors, but also subnational actors, and what would that mean for governance in the future. And then based on all of that, we, of course, conducted some visioning and scenario developments, and all of that information is now available in the UN policy brief on governance futures, which is also available on our DPIDG UN DESA website. So I think these were the main key elements from the online survey and how it was used. So thank you, and back to you, Chris.
Thanks, Adriana. And for those interested, I think we can paste a link in the chat, which will get you to that excellent policy brief on governance futures. So thanks for sharing those insights with us, Adriana. The next person that I wanted to call on would be Naroe, who really does need no introduction. Naroe and the team at UNDP have been incredibly supportive in getting the UN Futures Lab off the ground. And we will be forever grateful for your insights and guidance and advice and so on. But for this next couple minutes, Naroe, the floor is yours. Please tell us what went into the UNDP Signals and Spotlight report of 2023. Over to you.
Thank you, Chris, and it's a pleasure to work with you and your team, and thank you for the invitation. I'll be brief, but while I speak about our process to get into the spotlight, I couldn't help but go back to something which I have on my wall, which I think a lot about, which is what is a futures ready organization? What does it mean to do our work and why do we do it? And I keep asking myself, are we doing the right things? Foresight, as we all know, for me anyway, it's a means to an end. The end is what we have to keep in mind. And for me is, this is exactly what we're talking about today, which is our ability not just to anticipate change, but to make sense of it, right? To understand it, to think throughout change, what is it that we can do? How can we envision better futures, plural? And ultimately, what can we actually do about it? How do we engage? How do we act? Right? I say to our team in UNDP, we are in the business of change. And I think we wouldn't work for the UN if we weren't, right? Because we believe that change is possible, to shift change to the direction that we want. So all the systems in the world are, in our mind, a means to that. Now, why did we create our Future Trends and Signals system? Well, I confess it was very much COVID influence and prompted by COVID. We created it precisely at the time, 2021, when we were capturing signals of change a bit more systematically, because we were trying to, it was designed for us to be able to do our strategy, our strategic plan. We are a strategy and futures team. So we wanted to understand the landscape, and more than ever at that time, it felt like we could not make sense of it, let alone design a 4 or 5 year strategy with everything that was changing in the world. So we said we need a mechanism to be able to capture these signals, make sense of it, and inform our strategic direction. So ultimately, the logic of having a UNDP Future Trends and Signal system is to be able to have, allow the organization to make better decisions, make sure that our programs are more adaptable to change. They're designed to be able to anticipate and adapt to it. And of course, what I said, influence change. Now, what we also understood is, as we all know, that change doesn't happen in nice, neat cycles according to our strategies or plans. It happens on a continuous basis. And typically, I'm sure those of you involved in strategy development, you all go through this massive landscape analysis, horizon scanning, as we do that, in these cycles. But we needed a mechanism that would be alive and kicking throughout our work, throughout the lifespan of the implementation of the strategy as a continuous practice in UNDP. And this is why we created the FTSS. Now, I'm very jealous because we did not embed AI from the outset. Actually, to develop the spotlight, we looked at 70 trend reports from all over the world and did use AI to analyze that. But our system is not able to do that now. We're embedding AI features as we speak, precisely to bridge that gap. But the Future Trends and Signals system collects signals from colleagues all around UNDP. You're seeing a glimpse of it. So we have both trends and signals, and it's also tied to, other than things like the sort of steep V and other foresight markers, but also to our strategic objectives. So we can also see, based on our strategy, what are the relevant signals, etc. But for us, it's a mechanism not just as a capture. It is a mechanism for us to democratize foresight. Because not only are the signals captured in real time, all the time, we have over 440 signal scanners all over the world. These are UNDP colleagues from all walks of life, every nationality, every region, almost every country. And it allows people to capture what they're observing, right? And it allows us as a body of development practitioners to be able to make sense of it together. We come together every week, anybody can join. And we try to see what's emerging. Sometimes it's topic specific or not. So I think it not just democratizes and instills the practice across the organization, but it also creates space, safe spaces for dialogues that aren't hierarchical. It's about, what are we seeing and what do you think that means? There is no right and wrong. It's about, having this embedded as a practice. So it's been featured. It's got a case study about our system. We've been mentioned in the Association of Professional Futurists. But as I said, most importantly, apologies, I think it's about, not just what we're seeing, is what are we doing about it? And then I think this is a practice that we want to continue to instill. But I have to say, I love your AI and want our colleagues to talk, because I think part of the challenging is not having a wealth of data, right? We've got 2,000 signals, and our goal is to have year on year more and more, but making sense of it and helping colleagues translate that into, okay, so what does that mean for my country? What does that mean for my area of work? What does that mean? We've got guides on these to help country offices, for example, internalize it. But I think there's a lot more that needs to be done for it to be widespread. So I think your AI feature is spot on. Great that you've been able to do that from the outset. And I have to say I'm slightly jealous of that. But congratulations, and love to work together more. Thank you.
No, Rory, thanks so much for sharing those insights. And of course, collaboration we are very, very open to. So we'll make connections with Adriana and Gregory, and happy to collaborate however we can. But before we get into collaboration and so on and so forth, we're going to move to FAO. No, we're going to move to UNEP. Sorry, my notes are slightly out of order. Jason Javor, who we've been collaborating with for a while, can I hand the floor over to you? Just again, give us an overview of this. Again, another excellent report from UNEP. Just give us the insights. What was the process? What did you learn from the entire endeavor? And the floor is yours.
Thanks, Chris. And let me just echo my congrats to you and the team in DESA for this tool, where it looks fabulous, and we're excited about it and can't wait to dig our teeth into it. So yeah, let me just share some reflections on the report, Navigating New Horizons, and really the process behind that report, which was about an 18-month endeavor. And look, when we set out on this as UNEP, what we call our foresight trajectory, I think at the core, it wasn't just to establish and glean insights on potential disruptions. Of course, there's that. But crucially, we were really interested in the so what, as we've just heard, and how do we navigate these disruptions, and what do they mean for our own planning, our strategic planning. So throughout this, we really approached the process and the development of the report through the lens of, are we focused on the right issues at the right time for the right audiences? That was really front and center for us at UNEP. Look, the development of the report itself, as I said, was carried out over a long period of time. I think we possibly underestimated the effort that really is involved. Its foresight remains, in horizon scanning to the point, quite a mechanical exercise, and so that's why I think we're delighted to see the development of these AI-enabled and AI-assisted tools, because this is something that we thought was a challenge. But look, as many of you on the call and on the panel are aware, that it was a deeply collaborative process, one that I think was rooted in two things: systems thinking, getting to the root of all of these crises that we're confronted with being so intertwined, and the other thing that was rooted in is horizon scanning. So as I said, we engaged a very diverse group of experts and thinkers, thought leaders from across the globe. Somewhere in the order of 1,500 were engaged in some way or another in this process. And we came together really to glean and to examine what became 280 signals of change. These were then distilled into a set of what we called critical shifts. You can think of these as global phenomenon, that are really shaping the future of planetary health and human well-being. And we went a step further to really prioritize the 18 signals of potential disruption that we, from our vantage point, thought, we really have to have a line of sight on these. We need to understand, continue to monitor them. But I think what really made our process unique wasn't the rigor of analysis, not to undermine that, or the evidence, but it was really bringing these diverse voices to stress test our assumptions. And we did this using primarily scenarios that we built for the purpose of this exercise that we haven't actually even gone public with. They were designed solely for the purpose of, surfacing blind spots in our thinking. And reflecting, it's been some time now. We launched the report in July, and reflecting back, I can say that this really wasn't an academic exercise or a purely normative one. We have used the insights to a fault, really, to inform our ongoing development of our medium-term strategy at UNEP, and to really sharpen the focus where, in areas where we believe we need to be far more proactive in our intervention, if you will. I think the report's insights have also helped us as an agency understand, where the emerging issues, where we need to take a lead and maybe do something differently. A case in point, maybe it's the circular economy transition and looking at high impact sectors. But I think the work itself also gave us a line of sight on perhaps where we need a seat at the table, and equally important, where we need to build stronger coalitions across sectors and mandates in different UN agencies. And so I think, looking at this tool that you've got on the table, I'm really excited because I think, to me, that gets at the root of why we're pursuing foresight. We're pursuing foresight to understand, where the blind spots are, how we can be better anticipatory, and where we need to work together across agencies, in a time of dwindling resources. So with that, I'll turn it back to you.
Fantastic. Thanks, Jason, and what a great report it is. There's a QR code up on the screen for those of you who want to access the report. Now we can also put a link in the chat for those who don't want to use QR codes. Totally fine. Okay, and now let's move on to our friend and colleague Lorenzo from FAO, who's going to be talking to us about the future of food and agriculture, drivers and triggers for transformation. You have the floor, sir.
Thanks a lot, Chris. Thanks to all the colleagues, and thanks also for sharing the findings of this work, which is really an endeavor, to consolidate, to go through all these pieces of work related to strategic foresight is quite important as a step towards using this material for further work, further influencing the future. So our corporate strategic foresight exercise that we ran in 2022 essentially involved the whole organization. And you know that FAO is a multidisciplinary organization, despite the fact that we deal with agri-food systems. We have a lot of expertise in different fields, including economics, but also agriculture, food processing, and so on and so forth. So putting together all these different diverse expertise was the first challenge. The second challenge was putting together people sitting in different parts of the world, to give emphasis to the fact that FAO is a global organization, like many other UN organizations that have this endeavor of dealing with the globe, with the earth as such. So essentially, the first consideration was let's focus on agri-food systems. What are they? They are a complex set of elements, and they are driven by what we call drivers of agri-food systems. I know that the terminology may be a bit misleading because different foresight works use the term driver to the driver of change. For us, drivers are simply energies, forces that move agri-food systems forward. So they are determinants of agri-food systems. So, and as if it may look at as a sort of paradox, we looked into the future by looking a lot into the past to understand the causal linkages. What causes what? To make up our mind on what are the determinants of what has been the determinants of the past and the present, and how this could also determine the future. So we ended up with the scenarios. We identified the challenges with the idea to identify triggers for transformation, how to transform agri-food systems in the way we desire, because we are not neutral. We are independent, but we are not neutral. Not all the futures are the same for us, so we have desirable futures. And I fully share the advice of what Chiki said, and also Madam Suzuki said, that the future is not something to predict, it's something to build. So we identified triggers for transformation. We gave emphasis to governance, because in your work, you see that climate change, for instance, is one of the topics of concern to all the agencies and units. So what is the governance for climate change? So there is a vacuum between the issues at stake and the governing mechanism that we have. And then other triggers like income and wealth distribution, knowing that food is going to be more expensive in the future, because if we internalize all the costs that we are not paying for, it's important that we improve income and wealth distribution if we don't want to have a future of hunger and food insecurity. Well, all this fed into regional exercises, is still feeding into regional exercises, but also in the strategic framework of the organization until 2031. And this, through this, feeds into strategies and policies of our members. So the basic idea is not to focus too much on methodologies and so on, but also focusing on findings and the way these findings can be used to shape up the future we want, what we consider the 4 betters on which FAO is engaged together with the rest of the UN system. Let's say how to achieve Agenda 2030 and how to move even beyond Agenda 2030. Over.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing all of that with us, Lorenzo. Now, listen, what we were going to do was maybe go and do another round of questions, but the questions that we had wanted to pose to you, the panelists, you've basically covered them. So I think the best thing for us to do, in which case, would be to turn over to our audience, to our participants, to see what other questions may emerge from a broader group of people. And so for those of you who are participating, you can see a large QR code on the right-hand side of the screen, and if you hover your smartphone cameras over that and then click the little link, it's going to take you to some questions so that you can join the discussion digitally. For those of you who don't like QR codes like me, you can also join by putting into your browser www.menti.com, and there is a code, as you can see there on the bottom right of the screen, 8301-3740. And we're asking 3 questions to you in the audience. So first of all, in what ways do you think the insights from this tool can be useful and applied to your work? Secondly, what opportunities are there for collaboration? And we've already heard at least one. And thirdly, do you have any questions you'd like us to test the tool with? Outside of that, the Mentimeter tool, you can also pose questions in the chat, which we're also monitoring. So as we're gathering some of the thoughts in terms of those questions posed from our audience, maybe we could shift to our Mentimeter browser and start to see some of the insights as they're coming in. Judith, you are most welcome, and please join us for future sessions. It was great to have you with us, and please have a great rest of your day. So we're going to be looking at Mentimeter results. I can see a couple of lines that just emerged on the screen. Rest assured, these are nothing to do with the Mentimeter results. And in terms of the Mentimeter tool, if you want to access directly from the chat, the address will be www.menti.com/. deepen.com, and then as Alana's just posted, and she's about to post the code as well, which will get you access to the Mentimeter tool. There you go, 83013740. And so we're starting to see some of the results coming in, and so let's take a look at these results as they trickle in. There is always a little bit of a lag when we're using Mentimeter, but already we can see for portfolio and project design a use of the tool. We can see an idea around helping us to analyze signals that we've used to gather within our own horizon scanning, looking for business opportunities for a person's respective UN entity, and then of course comparing what's already been said about popular topics to inform efforts to stretch beyond these when imagining futures. And so what we're already starting to see, which is very useful for us and the DESA team, are some more ideas, some more insights from this broader community, and ideas that we will certainly be thinking about incorporating when we move perhaps beyond pilots and look at scaling this very exciting project. One that I find quite interesting is mapping emerging UN priority areas. And the reason that I say that is because we carry out an awful lot of work with various UN entities looking at multi-year strategic planning. And one question that we always get from participants when we're working with multi-year strategic plans is what is the rest of the UN thinking about when it comes to the future? And this would be certainly one tool that we could probably use to help folks across the UN understand what we're all thinking about the future with their own agency and being able to access this tool directly. So here's an interesting insight. Tools seem to be good, smart visual representations of links, and this person really liked the cascading links when we start to dive a little bit deeper. And here's the crux. It would be good for horizon mitigation, for hazard mitigation and preparedness and long-term resilience. So we're already starting to see some of these insights, which is incredibly useful. And what I wanted to do is just pause very quickly in case there are questions that people would like to put to the panelists. And it's a rich panel of foresight specialists and not foresight specialists. And so if you do have questions, feel free to put those in the chat. But in the meantime, there's another couple of questions that we'd like to show the results from Mentimeter. So if we could move to the next two questions, that would be much appreciated. And so the second question was, what are the opportunities for collaboration using this pilot as it moves into a more mature model? And so if there are, in the meantime, if there are questions from the audience that you want to pose to the panelists, please do so using the chat. And in the meantime, we'll wait for these questions to answers to the Mentimeter questions trickle in. And I'm just going to see from the chat very quickly. Thanks, Bastian from DPO, and thanks for your collaboration with us as well. So Bastian saying thanks to all the presenters to the Futures Lab. It's fascinating. Love to contribute and benefit from system-wide horizon scanning effort, sharing signals that DPO have collected, feed into the peace and security perspective. Bastian, you'd be more than welcome to collaborate on this project. Reach out to the team who you've been working with, and we're more than happy to facilitate more collaboration moving forwards, because collaboration is one thing that works extremely well around futures and foresight. And so we can see three other insights, ideas in terms of opportunities for collaboration. And yes, indeed, upscaling the tool for UN-wide use is definitely something we have in mind. Of course, when it comes to scale, there's lots of complexity in terms of how we scale, what we scale, and the different scaling approaches. Now, here's a question for the panel, and I'm going to put this to Narue, if I may. How have your efforts to conduct foresight contributed to culture change in your organization? It's one that we all grapple with day in, day out. Narue, that's the question to you. And it's not an easy one, I know. So put you on the spot.
Yes, it's a super important question, but not an easy one, as you say. I think that part of what we want to do is to continue to contribute to a culture of more horizontal collaboration, of more cross-sectoral, diagonal, all sorts of types of collaboration across the organization. And I think that foresight helps us do that. Nobody has a claim on the future about what's going to happen. So it's something that it's an equal level playing field in a way when we talk about possible futures. And so we're very deliberate about our Signal Studios having, as I said, people who just want to join, creating those safe spaces. I think this also helps us. Of course, expertise in these areas is important, but we have colleagues from all walks of life identifying signals of change and saying why they think it's relevant for development, our work on poverty. It's not just a poverty expert. So it helps, I think, make us all hopefully more humble about the future, humble about the areas of expertise that they have, and creating a sort of a wider space for, again, collaboration, discussing, deriving collective, really, intelligence out of this practice, which is really a practice. So we want foresight not to be an expertise only or capability only, but it's a way of working. So I think we still have some ways to go, but I do think that we have an energetic futures network. These 440 scanners, again, are 100% voluntary. They do this above and beyond their work. I do think there is an intergenerational also gap to be built. Futures excites. It excites a younger cohort of people, which is fantastic. But again, we need to see this widespread. So I'll stop here to give others the opportunity, but good question.
Thanks, Narue, and an excellent answer. So thanks for that. So what we're gonna do is also go back into the chat, because there's another couple questions which have come in simultaneously. We're gonna look at the third question that was posed on Mentimeter. But while the answers to that question are bubbling through. Okay, so this is one for Gregory. Gregory, if you're still with us, for the tool builders, which large language model did you use? What were the factors that you took into account when selecting? Gregory, that is one for you.
Yeah, hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yeah, it uses Gemma 3, which is the open source version of Gemini. I think that when we were producing this, we wanted to stay within the Gemini family of models because they have excellent structured output, which means essentially you can you can query a model and then it produces something which is not just a block of conversational text, but something which is reproducible and sort of like it's more numerical, and then that can be conditioned into a graph or like a network. So that capability was influencing the decision. It was honestly I think, were I making this again, and maybe this is a discussion, the best open source model, best open weights model is DeepSeek R1. So that's a discussion for us to have. But I think the Gemma project, which is a very open LLM development environment with a lot of great documentation, a lot of great work on transparency and alignment, and a great community is really setting the standard for community engagement with safety standards, etc. So I think I have a high level of confidence in this choice, but these LLMs are moving quickly, and I think you need to have a sustainable tool. You have to have the ability to just unplug and plug in a new model. That requires some quite advanced plumbing, but that is the only way to proceed with the pace of development. So we remain model agnostic. So the actual systems architecture is model agnostic. It kind of ring fences the model, so it is replaceable. And I think as capabilities evolve, as we find more performant models, we are willing to change. And I think probably this project could benefit from changing to DeepSeek v3 in the future, but we will discuss that.
Thanks, Gregory, for that comprehensive answer. That was super useful. All right, so here's another one for panelists from Bastian, and this one I'm going to shoot straight over to Jason. So how do we account for biases in our signals and counteract them, or at least acknowledge them in our analysis? This should include biases stemming from language, cultural practices, and so on and so forth. Jason, the floor is yours.
Thanks very much, Chris, and thanks for the question. I think it's spot on. It's a fantastic question, and it's really at the root, I think, of the method behind foresight and approaches to horizon scanning. And that obviously, this is not a passive exercise; it's an active one. It's an active one by virtue of the fact that we're all imagining futures. We're all imagining how things could unfold differently, and so in gleaning those inputs and ingesting those inputs and interpreting them, there's obviously huge scope for bias. In our context, in our process, we put a tremendous amount of effort on really ground truthing what we were seeing iteratively by taking our insights on the road, if you will. And we had a series of workshops, 7 workshops built around scenarios, as I had mentioned, in different parts of the world, where we engage different types of thinkers, different types of disciplines, just to see that what was emerging had a different lens or a different interpretation, either vis-a-vis a social cultural context or what have you. So look, I don't think there's any silver bullet, but bias in all sorts of forms needs to be really managed, both in terms of how you're generating these inputs, but most importantly how you're interpreting them and putting them out.
Excellent, thanks, Jason. And I can see that there are some other questions in the chat. So Marieke, I think Alana's taking care of your question. But look, there's this conversation could probably go on for quite some time, and there will be other iterations of it, which you're all very much welcome to join as we plan them and put them out. This is an exciting tool, and we have always wanted to make this as accessible as possible. So all of the thinking behind it, we've very much taken an innovation process approach. We've got testable hypotheses, and many of those are around accessibility, using a range of personas to test the tool. And as we move forwards, I think there's going to be plenty of opportunities to invite more and more of you into how this tool develops moving forwards. Collaboration is something that is absolutely fundamentally key to good strategic foresight, and that includes tools that are developed in support of the use of strategic foresight. Now, unfortunately, our time is near to ending. But fortunately, Ayaka is still with us, I believe, and has offered to give some closing remarks for us. Ayaka, you've now been through this session with us listened to many of the insights from across the UN, listened to some of the questions and the answers provided. Could you share with us perhaps some closing remarks to round off our time together?
Sure. So first of all, congratulations again on this really exciting tool, but also to all our UN system colleagues for their own foresight efforts. I mean, I knew this was really interesting, but I was so impressed by all the foresight initiatives and efforts underway. And it's really gratifying to see how our foresight practices have deepened and have been enriched since we started talking about working together on foresight. So it's so rewarding to see kind of the community maturing. I mean, of course, some of you were already ahead, so to speak, but to bring together such a diversity of foresight insights from all of our partners in the UN system in this format, I think really enables us to tap into the insights that are generated across the system. And that's what Futures Lab, raison d'être of Futures Lab, all along, right? It was supposed to be a decentralized ecosystem, but that brings together foresight insights. So in a way, this tool gets us closer to powering this really amazing community that we have and array of foresight insights. And of course, the challenge is, what do we do about them, right? So it's obviously interesting to know about these insights and especially in our connections, which I think this tool helps us to do. But then how do we, so first of all, importance of sharing these insights and knowledge, which we are now beginning to do, and learning from each other. And I've seen from comments that the people put in the chat, then the more we do, the more we others also join in, the richer it gets. So let's really use this opportunity to then translate these foresight insights into, as I said at the beginning, anticipatory action. And before I close, I would like to congratulate the team once again for the collaborative work. So the joint teamwork between the Futures Lab Global Hub and the DESA team for making this happen. It's really something that we encourage from the Secretary General's office, not working in silos, but really working together in a joined up, integrated way. So this is really such a good example to follow. So please continue to work across different entities, really collectively invest in our collective strategic foresight capacities. And again, it's not an end, right? It's a means to delivering on the sustainable development goals and adapting to a rapidly evolving world. So let's not just be happy with amazing insights that are being generated, but let's work together to then also translate them into anticipatory action. So with that, congrats to all of you, and many thanks to the participants who tuned in, and looking forward to the next steps.
Thanks, Ayaka. And with that, a huge thank you to the panelists, of course, for your time and thinking, and to participants, and Ayaka for your opening and closing remarks, and to the team who put this STI side event together. Very, very much appreciated. And we will see you all next time.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.